everybody. Nick Powell's publisher of 1851franchise.com. If you like these videos, please click subscribe and you can watch more on our YouTube channel. Today, we are talking USA Ninja Challenge coming up next. All right, Richard, the line I say way too often is I bet on the jockey, not on the horse. So we're going to start with the jockey story, then we'll talk about the horse. So how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What is your franchise story?
Yeah, so I had sold my prior company in 2008, and about 11 years ago, I have a good friend of mine, Dale, that him and I were at a BNI group doing a business networking, and a friend of ours sent us a video of a child going over homemade obstacles with a GoPro camera strapped to his chest. And we sat there and said, could there be a business made out of this? So what we did is, 11 years ago, we started our first location. And then probably 4 or 5 years in, there was a group from Connecticut that was going to a cousin's birthday party. And I happened to be working in the gym that day, and they said, we need one of these. And I want one of these. And will you franchise this for us? And they very much so, they called me every 2 weeks, I think for 6 months, convincing me to start on the franchise journey. Initially, our goal was to open 10 corporate locations and then franchise after that. So, but we kind of accelerated that from a franchise standpoint.
You clearly understand business prior to getting into franchising. You've now been in franchising. Did you understand franchising before you got into it, or what surprised you about it?
Yeah, I think franchising, the surprise is all the different owners and all the different personalities. Like when you own your own company and you're hiring your folks and all of that, they work for you from that standpoint. But in franchising, they're really independent entrepreneurs. And what we're really doing here is we're helping entrepreneurs be successful in working with children and community and having a very successful business. So I think from that standpoint, that was, the biggest thing that I took away from that. I think the other thing is when I look at the model of franchising, I was very interested in the model because you don't have to use all of your own funds to open locations. Yeah. And I like that idea. And that's kind of one of the reasons we went down this path.
It's interesting, your first statement about the entrepreneur. Obviously, you have your system, you're connecting your system back to the entrepreneur. I would imagine one of the more challenging things to figure out is the communication when you're the boss and you have an employee is do this or there's going to be consequence. In franchising, entrepreneur in general business, when you create your own business or buy your own business, you're like, I'm the person in charge. And so now I would imagine part of the navigation is how does a franchisor and a franchisee figure out how to coexist? We're still what the franchisor says has to be the guiding principle, but you have to have some sort of willingness to listen to the voice of the franchisee, because in their mind, I don't work for anybody else. I work for myself. Is that the complexity?
That's a very complex issue. In fact, I happen to have my quarterly owners call right before this. So, when you get on with the owners, they all have different opinions. So one of the things we were talking about was some of our brand development and what we're doing with our brand development funds. And, the thing I think with all these independent owners is how do you guide them as a group down a path? Because there's only so much that we can do. Now, each individual has their own opinion. And, from a group standpoint, it's really about how do we, activate the group mentality and get them all working for a common goal. So today was a great discussion. I mean, I probably had people 180-degree views on brand development today and in that particular area. And people were going back and forth on that. And, we came to kind of a middle ground and brought the whole group forward. And I think that is the biggest challenge. You're more of a mediator but you're also providing that guidance. Like, you do have to follow the model. There are reasons we have a model. It's one of the key things we track is all the analytics on the model. And the analytics are very important because if you, as a franchisee, kind of fall off, we can see that. And what we don't want to happen is we don't want to see poor performance. I want to see the performance maintained at a high level.
Your background wasn't in franchising, but executive leadership, sales, growth companies. Do you feel like if you think back to moments where you're in a tough boardroom trying to sell something, a widget that you had of the past, is that what you're able to lean on, like your negotiation skills, your people skills? Is that really the asset that you brought to the table, far beyond, like, obviously you're building business structure around kids' wellness, but is that your magic superhero power? Is your backdrop on that?
I think that goes a long way into that. I mean, I've had global sales or operational organizations at some very large company, Fortune 50 companies, as well as I've had 5 other companies. And when you're going in either talking to a difficult client or something from that perspective, it's really about how do you come out with a win-win scenario for people. And I think that's the key is, can you get people to look at win-win compared to win-lose? Too many people nowadays, it's always about, it's my opinion or else. And we see that across all the news every day. But it's really, how do we come together and how do we have a win-win scenario? And some of the hardest sales opportunities that I've had, or some of the hardest people things, it's how do we come together and find that ground that will work for everybody.
I think that North Star will guide you to an incredible ending to this journey when that journey comes to an end, because when you work in a common place in franchising, what happens is franchisees feel more excited to be a part of it. And when they're more excited to be a part of it, they're more excited to scale. And so I think that's a great insight, that most franchisors play win-lose. But if you can change your mindset to be win-win, then the outcomes should find a pathway of compromise, which in turn should keep people happier, which in turn should allow people to grow. So I think that's awesome.
It should. And I mean, I think one of the things you see is part of our culture is we really look at it as like the ninja family. So for us, it's all about how do we promote and work with children in community in a positive manner. There's so much negativity out there for our children. How do we take that and how do we be the positive place for the child? There's too many things like today, if you look at like school sports and stuff, where it's win-lose all the time. Ninja is not like that as a sport. As a sport, it's everybody cheers for every contestant, and everybody can do something in a ninja gym. So every child, I don't care if the child is overweight and non-athletic, or they're a rock star athlete, can walk into any gym and do something well their first day. And there are very, very few times do kids get that positive reinforcement. And you take that to the owners too. Same thing with the owners and, the owners of the franchises. There's always something that's positive that everybody can learn from.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like, if a franchisee feels like on day one, even though they've never been in franchising before, they get a taste of what winning feels like, that will continue to build confidence, and eventually enough confidence makes it so you run through brick walls.
Correct.
So I think that's awesome. With your business background, I'm curious on your internal sense of urgency, because like in general business, you raise capital. Capital gives you the ability to hire the right people fast enough, and you can scale at whatever pace that those financials allow you to pace at. In franchising, you're still waiting almost at the pace of the right franchisee coming in, finding the right real estate, operating the way that you want. Has that been something that you've had to internally navigate on, that this is a different pace, or how do you manage like patience when it comes to this business versus others?
So patience is a big issue. I mean, I'm always talking to my team about they want to run faster than they can. Hey, we could do this too, and we could add this and do this next piece. But it's like, how do you support them and grow in a responsible manner? Um, I see a lot of companies out there that go off and add 200 locations, and they totally implode. And then you have lots of people that are upset. Lots of franchisees is, upset. Um, we're a different environment. I think the environment we have is more family. It's all about people succeeding from that standpoint. I look at our owners. I mean, even during the pandemic, during COVID, we lost no gyms. I went to daily calls with every owner, um, and to get people through that difficult time. And I think that's what really sets us apart. Overall growth, I think we set realistic goals on what we're looking for. I don't want to outstrip the ability to provide a quality product. And sometimes, that means we slow down a little on our growth, and that's okay.
What's your vision for this year, next year? What does that look like?
Yeah, we'll close this year at about 90 units. Out of that, we'll have 45 to 50 open. The following year, we'll be at probably 140 for total unit count, and we'll be close to, let's say, 80 to 85 units open.
What has been the secret to the kind of growth as an emerging brand, do you think?
I think when people find out about our product and what we offer and the blueprint and the detail level that we've taken it through, and talk to and validate it with some of our franchisees. I mean, I don't know what business you can start today and people can go cash flow positive their first week. That happens regularly with us. I'm not saying everybody does that, but I would say 50% of them are go cash flow positive right out of the gate. When you open a business, and having 4 other businesses that I've done, it's really hard to get to break even. I mean, in some of my other businesses took a couple of years to get to break even, and we're able to provide a business model that can do that in relatively short time.
I mean, as an outsider, my perspective is this: you engineered a business that doesn't, in relative to franchise, and doesn't break the bank.
Right.
And you and I talked about this. That there are some big fancy gyms where they have all the bells and whistles in the world, and they clearly spent tons of cash to build this thing out. But the problem with that is it doesn't align with what break even or cash flow positive is. And so you guys, in the way that you engineered this, you said, okay, what is the best case scenario that we can do from a build out standpoint that will make it appease our guests, our customers, our parents, and our children, and will drive business for our franchisees. And I think that's part of the beauty. In full transparency, I got the pleasure of watching a gym this week, and I don't know that the bells and whistles matter. It's what the kid, like, the confidence meter of those children is so high for what they're able to see that anything is possible, and it doesn't matter what the 4 walls really look like. Obviously you guys have built a good gym, but it's amazing. Like, it's probably where some of the sports franchises that exist, where there's no brick and mortar, you're in a park, like, the magic is really in the confidence that the children are having. And here you figure out a way, how do we build brick and mortar without breaking the bank? And I think that's the cool thing, is you've engineered the business model first, and then you allowed people into it. And I think that's really cool.
And I think that's a valid point. I think one of the things that we looked at length when we started was, how can we create a model that we can get to break even, and then how can we grow? Because if you look at it, there are gyms out there that are 4 times our size. And the problem with that is you have 4 times the overhead. And, it's important to provide a positive space for children, but you as the business owner, you still have to make money doing it. And if you can do that, then you can really do what the key is working with kids. Like, I know I met with you earlier in the week, but I had a discovery day between today and or yesterday and your visit, and the biggest comment from the couple from Georgia was all the kids are smiling and all the kids are happy and the kids are engaging each other and all the parents are sitting there watching their kids. And one of the things we do is we have this viewing wall, so you get to see from the gym. The parents get to see everything that's happening in the gym, but the kids and you can see everything that's happening with the parents. 90% of the parents are not on their phones. They're watching their children. And that is a testament in this society today that it works. The pure joy of the kids is just amazing.
Well, and I'll add in the curriculum in the field that you end up being in. If we think about soccer, football a little bit less, baseball, basketball a little bit less, but there are these moments like the right fielder is not going to get a ball all game, and so they're not going to be smiling, they're not going to be engaged here because you're engaged in the equipment, you're engaged in the coach, you're engaged in your peers, you're engaged in the activity, and you're engaged in what's physically happening with your body. Like there's so many different senses that are being excited back to the children, which makes, in my opinion, that's ice cream. Meaning, I want to come back. I want more ice cream because, like, the sensory overload of happiness. There's so many things that are happening, and that's cool about the just pure.
And you look at that, and the way you prove that out, Nick, too, is the relationships we've had with. I mean, and I'm talking long-term relationships with children and family. In my gym, which is the corporate gym, I have 4 coaches that started with me 10 and 11 years ago. And they have stayed, and I've had this relationship with their family for that long. When we talk retention, I'm not talking retention months for our gyms. I'm talking 3 to 5 year retention rates of 60 to 75%. That's different in this business. So once you acquire the customer, they tend to stay. They see the value in it for their child. And I think everything we've done with things like level systems, so the kids, level up, and we display that, and the parents get to see where their child is. There's no magic in it. You can go in and look at your son and daughter's name on the parent viewing area and see exactly what they're working on. The kids do it from that perspective. Kids will always come up to you and ask you questions about things. In fact, yesterday at a discovery day, I had a young boy come up. He says, I'm working on handstands. I haven't been able to get a handstand yet. How do you do a handstand? So I'm like talking to him about the technique. And, kids ask you those questions all the time. And a handstand's just a very basic floor one. But, they can ask you questions on any of that, and they're engaged from that standpoint.
I love it. I mean, clearly, I said this to you. There's no way I could do any of those things that those kids are doing. My brain is still wrapping my head around how they're able to do it.
I just wish I had this when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too.
As a kid, it would have been awesome. It's just like, parents used to send us outside and say, "Go play in the woods." Same idea.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So let's pretend there's someone watching this and they're engaged, and people are watching this, which is hopefully they're engaged. What do you want a candidate who's a ghost that hasn't filled out a form yet, that is thinking about this business? What else do you want them to know about why they should fill it out and why they should fill out a form now?
I think if people are looking for something different, and different than from their corporate job or things that they're doing today, but what their goals are in their value system is to work with children, work with families, and then work in the community. I think we have a fantastic business that allows you to make a great living doing all of those things. You really have to want to be with kids. It's amazing, though. I do have people come in and they talk to me sometimes and say, "Hey, I love your business model, but I hate children, and I just won't sell them a franchise." I'm like, that's not what we do. You have to love children in our thing. You have to have joy. You have to smile when kids come up and talk with you. And, and all of that. And it's such a rewarding business. I will tell you, in all the other businesses I've ever had, I've never had someone come up and hug me and tell me how much I've impacted their son or daughter's life with tears in their eyes. Sorry, it gets me teary too. It's just an amazing, amazing feeling.
I think that's and look, as you reflect back on your career, I'm sure you've done this. You know how to build businesses that make money. You know how to build businesses where you have to travel nonstop. And then you get to a place where, all right, but I could also build a business where it is a moneymaker, but the currency, the emotional currency is so sky high that it makes it worth it every day. And I think that's clearly what you're going through. I started this off by saying I like to bet on the jockey, not on the horse. And if I'm a buyer, I think you've created a wonderful widget, but I also know what your track record is. And so if I'm gonna bet on someone, I'm gonna bet on Richard. You know what you're doing, and clearly it's already proof in the pudding. You guys are early, you're emerging brand, but you're quickly moving from emerging to established. When nobody was looking, you figured it out. So
yeah, I think, and it's all a testament to the team. It really is. We have a great team. They're very, very much all bought into this, and everyone's has been with me multiple years. It is amazing. We don't have turnover, so.
I love it. Richard, I am looking forward to seeing where this story goes. Thank you so much for sharing some of it with us today. For Richard, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.